to the Alive with Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Megan, and today we have two special guests, my brother Bennett and my sister-in-law, Caitlyn. They've been married 9 months, which is super exciting, and today they're going to talk about their moves to Arizona. Caitlyn moved from New Mexico to Arizona for GCU for college, and then Bennett moved after college from Oregon to Arizona for his work at PayPal, and they're both going to talk about that season of waiting before meeting each other and how they met at church and all of that, and then more about their relationship. But I'm so excited to have you guys.
Thanks for having us.
We're excited to be here.
Excited to be here.
Of course, there's going to be so much wisdom, so as Margo said last time, get your notes out, get ready. But would you guys like to introduce your story on how you moved from New Mexico to GCU, and then how you moved from Oregon to Arizona, how you felt called to go there, and how that process was?
Do you want to start us out?
Yeah, I can start. So I moved from New Mexico. I was born and raised there, like you just said, I moved from there. But I wanted to play volleyball. That was my dream, to play volleyball in college. So I was trying to decide where to go. I was between Texas and Arizona. And I was given an offer to go to Texas, so it was kind of seeming like that was going to be the best option. And then it was a private school, and they didn't offer scholarships because it's a D3 school. So it was really expensive. So I was like, okay, that's probably not going to work. And then at the same time, my family was really wanting to follow me wherever I went. And so they were like, no pressure, but wherever you go, we're going to follow. So I was like, okay, it's definitely a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure.
It was, yeah. And I felt like GCU stood out for a lot of reasons. Honestly, however GCU advertises themselves, private, Christian, affordable, I was like, I love it, it's perfect.
Yeah.
And so that's what led me here, and the Lord was kind of closing doors for volleyball. I wasn't really desiring to do it as much. And yeah, it was kind of interesting because that dream kind of died a little bit, but I think it was for the best because it was definitely an idol in my life, and I think the Lord wanted to very gently pull me away from that. And so I came to GCU and got my degree in exercise science, and my family, we all moved out here together in the summer of 2019, so that's like 7 years ago now, I guess.
It's a big move, and that was like during COVID too. Right?
It was right before COVID, thankfully.
Okay.
Yeah, so we were here for, I think that was like 7 or 8, 9 months, somewhere around there, before COVID hit, which was really nice because...
Get settled a little bit.
Yeah, we had a little bit of time to get settled in before COVID happened. So that was another mercy of the Lord, just getting us here before that happened. But yeah, that's kind of what brought me here.
And then you played club volleyball for GCU, so you were able to still play volleyball, but maybe not as like-competitively.
It's true. I got to play a little bit of club, but then, like you just said, COVID hit, and then they had some wild rules for playing. Like you had to wear a mask, and you had to have a certain amount of people on the court, and so I just decided to stop at that point. But looking back, the Lord was obviously at work in that because He was guiding my desires and my dreams away from just playing a sport and being in the health world, still wanting to do things with athletes but not playing, if that makes sense. So
that's so good. And then even if you did go to Texas, you maybe wouldn't have been able to play because of the COVID rules.
That's
so
a good point.
That's so good that you were able to go to GCU, study exercise science, and still hit that dream in a way, but by serving others instead of yourself.
That's so true. I didn't even think about that, but that's such a good point. The Lord was probably working even in that. So yeah.
So good. What was your move like from Oregon to Arizona after graduating college?
Yeah, the Oregon to Arizona move. There's a bit of an arc. This was a dream in the making for many years, most of growing up, I would say. In terms of growing up in Oregon is very rainy, and I always dreamed of more sun. And so I always dreamed of living with more sun, but I never really knew if I would. I was like, I'll probably end up here, but Graham and I love to always talk about it. Like, man, it'd be fun to live somewhere with more sun. But that was just more of a dream that we had growing up, and we love talking about it'd be fun to live somewhere that isn't as wet. And then fast forward to college, went through college, And college was great. Went to college in Portland, and but then when COVID hit, that really is the catalyst that switched things up and really made that kind of that old dream really come back in a lot of ways, but from a different perspective. Not only the ring being a part that I didn't love as much, but the politics really became a front and center reason that I wanted
like more
to.
restrictions, and it was almost like pushing us out. Like, okay, we don't want to be here anymore.
Very
Especially
much.
with COVID too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of it was with COVID in downtown Portland and everything got shut down. That made me realize I don't want to be in a state that's so restrictive. I want to be in a state where I have more freedom and don't have to worry about this type of thing happening, locking everything down, shutting down life for, I think it was about 2 years that everything was really restricted and just altered my entire school experience.
Yeah, especially in college, going
Yeah.
to Portland State University, like that was super restricted and it made it hard to, like, I think you even had online courses instead.
Yeah, pretty much online for most of my school because about 2 years were remote, which was the majority, well not majority, but a lot of college was online.
That's so hard.
Yeah. But anyway, so that was a big catalyst for, okay, I want to move somewhere that has better weather. That was always a passive thing, but also I want to move somewhere that has more freedom and less restrictive politics in that way. And so anyway, that led me on kind of, that was on my heart, but I wasn't sure what that meant, where that meant. It kind of led to a decision. I was like, it was kind of Florida or Arizona were the two that were kind of top of mind. Arizona won out, and I grew up thinking Arizona was the surface of the sun. I was like, who lives in Arizona? And anyway, come to find out, a lot of people live here. But it was really cool to see the Lord just kind of work. Arizona came into the mind, and then slowly over time it became more and more just like, this really feels like what the Lord has for us. And I say us, like Graham and I talked a lot about this, and then eventually I got to a point in my life where it was kind of a moment of, okay, I think this is where the Lord's leading. Am I going to move forward in this? Am I going to act on this? And the fall of 2022, so after I had graduated, kind of made that decision, and then in January of 23 moved out here completely by faith. I had a job that I was doing, and I had out of school gotten a job out here in Phoenix, was working remote. So I had the job, which was huge, but I didn't have a house or an apartment lined up. I didn't have anybody I knew basically other than Margot and Spencer, who were attending GCU at the time. But I felt like this was the next step the Lord had for me, and I set a date and moved out here, and it's been really cool to see how the Lord's blessed so much in that step of faith.
Yeah, and that was a crazy move, like totally a leap of faith. And you went to Singapore to see our brother Nate.
Yeah.
And then you just went straight into Arizona. So that was a crazy like month for you. And then you found a super good apartment complex and were able to see Spencer and Margot, and like that was super nice for them to have like kind of an outlet out of GCU. So that was
such a fun season.
From that season, like what were you guys like learning about God?
I would say for me, I think it's a lesson I'm learning in every season of my life. I was just telling you about it, how even now I'm trying to relearn it. But I think I was learning how to trust the Lord, and I think you're learning to trust him with different things in different seasons. And I think coming into college, I really struggled with identity. I really struggled with my skin. I was having a lot of acne in college, and that was really hard. I just felt just so icky in myself, and it was just hard, you know, I think especially as a female. And so that was really hard working through that. And then I came from a private Christian school, very small. I grew up in a decent sized city, but it felt kind of like a small town when I came here. It was like, whoa, that's a small town if this is a city, you know? And so I just had to learn how to root my identity in Jesus, no matter what other people were doing or what their lives looked like, or, you know, as a freshman and sophomore, what their career path is looking like, and even relationship status. You know, that's a whole kind of new world as
like
you're entering the college. Yes, comparison, because, you know, there's some people that go into college dating. So yeah, I feel like during that season, at least, like during college, I really had to learn how to trust the Lord with his plan for my life, but also grow in some confidence in who he says I am, not a confidence that comes from myself. But I think I was a very insecure person in college, And sometimes I still struggle with that, but I feel like in that season, the Lord really helped me have a confidence and have something that was rooted in Him and not in me, regardless of how I felt physically or mentally. It just, I could have confidence knowing that who I am never changes, regardless of the circumstances.
That's so good. I think that's huge in college, like learning who you are, especially like your family was here too, so they're watching you go through your college experience, and then you're also trying to like meet new friends and like build your identity through college. So that is like
one thing that was different for us is I'm the oldest of four, and so I was kind of blazing the pathway for my siblings, kind of. And that was a little intimidating too. Like I had no one to look up to of how to do this whole college thing, because I went to college with some of my friends that I'm still friends with because we were in high school together, and we're just in it together. And so that was also something to work through. Like I want my siblings to have a good example, and I want to enjoy college, but my family's here too, and it's home. It's supposed to be home, but it doesn't feel like home at all.
That's a huge
So that was an adjustment, and then COVID hits, and so it was a lot to adjust to in that first year or two. But looking back, God was so faithful, and it was fun too. It was a really fun season.
That's amazing. And then for you coming to Arizona, you didn't know anyone, but then you plugged into a church right away. Like, what was that? And you guys ended up going to the same church.
Yeah.
So that was, like, how they kind of, like, met. How was that process, finding a church and then just investing in that church? And then for you as well.
Yeah, I think kind of piggybacking off of the question of, like, where did you learn to trust the Lord in that process? You hit the nail on the head with friends and community and church being the piece that you have to rely on the Lord for. Looking back, like I tell people the story of like moving to Arizona and like having no apartment or anything lined up, just moving out here, and then like figuring it all out when I got here. To me, that wasn't really that scary or dangerous. Like to me, that was pretty straightforward. I was like, yeah, I'll figure it out. I'll be fine. Like if I need to go to a hotel for a little bit, I'll be fine. But the piece that really forced me to trust the Lord is when it comes to friends and friendships and building community and finding a good church, putting down roots. That was something that really forced me to trust the Lord, because you can't really effort your way into a good community. And there's steps you can do that help, and you can put yourself in a good place. But so much of that, you just rely on the Lord to provide that. And so that's something I really did have to trust the Lord in. And there were seasons where it was hard and it was lonely as that community was developing and as I was trying to get settled and find where that community was. But the Lord blessed very early on, landed at Christ Church here in Central Phoenix. And that really was such a jumping off point for me. Met a lot of really great people there, and then built a lot of community through a small group at Central Phoenix Christ Church. And
which you guys are still doing, right?
Still doing a kind of a branch off small group from that one. But yeah, the Lord's blessed. Like from that small group, there's been so much community that has formed. But I think that's been truly such an incredible thing for building community. And I would encourage anyone who's moving to a new area or going to college, like finding a good church and spending the time to put roots down in that church, whether that's finding a small group, whether that's volunteering, is such an incredible way to build lasting community.
That's so good. And even like me and my friends go to Christ Church as well. We went for like maybe 2 weeks at the same time.
Yeah,
and then we
yeah.
left.
And we're still at the same church, just different campuses.
Yes, different campuses.
Yeah.
A little far away, but it's
I
okay.
know.
How was that for you? Did you find Christ Church right away once you came to college with your friends from high school, or how did you find that church?
Yeah, so when we moved to Arizona, Christ Church Central Phoenix wasn't a thing. And
okay.
Yeah, so my parents went to Gilbert, and I really loved it, but obviously, like you just said, really far. And so there's Christ Church Peoria as well. It's another sister churches, I guess is how you call it. And so I went to Peoria with one of my good high school friends. And we honestly just really struggled to get plugged in. Like, they didn't have people our age. It was a lot of older people. And then COVID hit, and then obviously I wasn't going to Peoria anymore. And so then that summer, the summer of 2020, my dad was like, hey, the pastor from Christ Church Gilbert is actually planning a church in Central Phoenix. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And so I was nervous to like be a part of the core team, but I was, and it was honestly so awesome, and it was such a blessing to be a part of that.
Okay, wait, that's so cool. What was your role in like being a part of the core team playing Team Christ Church in Central Phoenix?
Yeah, so I was just serving, but it was really cool because we just started, it was a humble start. We just started meeting in a library for a while, and that was before it was public to everyone, but it was so cool. I feel like that's where my faith really exploded, because I went to great churches growing up, but nothing like super deep, and nothing that really helped me grow. And this really helped me grow, and it was so cool to just see the passion and the zeal there, and it was contagious. And so we opened at the YMCA at first, and we had to set up, tear down every Sunday. Whoa. And it was very different than it is now, but it was so sweet because it was just a small start, and you just felt so connected to everyone, and you just felt like a family. You really did. You knew everyone by name, and it was just such a special thing. So I have such a special place in my heart for church plants because I think it's such a sweet opportunity. So it was so sweet of the Lord to let me be a part of that, because I think it was more for me than it was for me serving other people, because the Lord just ministered to me so much.
That's so cool. Yeah, you're like jumping straight into ministry. Were there mostly college students because you're right by GCU?
Yeah, that's a good question. It honestly didn't start with college students at all. Right now, the majority of people are from GCU.
Yes.
But before, it was a lot of families, even like homeless people came in a lot, so we got to minister to them a lot. But I think it was a lot of families and some older couples. But yeah, it's changed for sure.
That's so cool. Now it's like majority college students.
Yeah.
Truly, like 80%.
Yeah, and that's kind of why you went to Gilbert Christ Church, and then you also followed her after you guys started dating. But so you guys both were serving. You were on the usher team, and you became a lead usher, and are still a lead usher at Christ Church Gilbert. But so you're both in leadership opportunities at Christ Church. How was that like time of singleness? Because you were super invested in like City Hope, the like homeless ministry, and you were both super involved with ministries and meeting people and like serving people. So how was that season for you guys growing in singleness?
I knew it in the moment, but it is, looking back, it's even more evident. Just I knew the single years were going to be so important for like being able to do things that you have freedom and time when you're not in a relationship, but it still is so easy to take those years for granted, and it's easy to just want to rush on to the next season. But I do think the single years are such a unique opportunity to be able to serve, and I know we both were able to do a lot more back in the day when there was more time, and like a Saturday morning going and helping serve homeless people was very doable. It gets harder as you have more and more things pressing on your time. But I think that, yeah, that was a really special season, and also really helped me grow as an individual, kind of having that time to be quiet and really figure out like, okay, how does the Lord want to use me in this season? How can I use this time well? And even outside, I would argue, even outside of like ministering to church is such an important component of how we live as Christians. But even outside of that, I would push people in those years to do things like you're doing with this podcast. I love it. Like, to try new things, take risks. During that season when I was out here, didn't know a lot of people. I was working full time, but in the evenings I had time, and I was like, why don't I pick up doing valet? So I did a lot of valet driving in the evenings and weekends. That was a really cool way to get to meet more people, minister to a bunch of guys, mostly in college, and also just use the time well to make some extra side cash. But that, I think those years are it's so easy to wish them away, and marriage is incredible, and this season is truly amazing. But it's also, every season you're there for a reason, and so making the most of those seasons is really important. I'm sure I could have made more use of it, but the Lord definitely helped me use it in different ways.
That's so good that you like made such good use of those like foundational years after moving here, even though maybe that wasn't like what you had expected for that time of your life. And then the same for you, Caitlyn. And I think that's such a good example for all of us in college or even in high school, like feeling that pressure from peers that are getting married or engaged or in a relationship. Like, make use of those years. Like, they're so important.
Mm-hmm.
So how was that for you? How did you make use of those years?
Yeah, I know you mentioned struggling with loneliness, like, initially moving here. It was interesting for me because I feel like I struggled with loneliness more after I graduated, because I came to college and I had all these friends and I built this community, and then after college a lot of them moved, and so I felt like I kind of had to start over a little bit, and so that's kind of when like my singleness really was a struggle, because I really wanted to be married and I was so ready for that, and I honestly was the last one in my friend group to meet someone. And that was honestly hard, but the Lord again taught me how to trust Him in that season and taught me how to be patient, and I learned so much, and the Lord was really sweet in that. And I think one thing for those listening that really helped me was journaling. And I emailed myself.
I saw that because I wrote like questions that you guys could answer before.
Yeah.
You emailed yourself. That's such a good idea.
I did. I heard it from someone on a podcast, actually. I can't remember who he was, but he was this Christian guy, and he talked about emailing himself at work prayers. And I loved that idea because I was a strength and conditioning coach at the time, and I had some downtime in between classes, but I don't know, I was just a little self-conscious to like pull out a notebook and start journaling, so it didn't feel uncomfortable for me to just pull out my computer and just type. And I was going through those old emails last night, and it just made me want to cry, honestly. And I just encourage I think girls especially, we love looking back and are more sentimental, but I highly recommend journaling as much as you can in hard seasons. And I almost wish I was more vulnerable in my journal. Like, I feel like I was almost afraid to be too vulnerable and look back and see prayers weren't answered. But now that they were, and even some weren't in the way that I wanted, but it actually was the best, I look back and see how faithful God was. And it was just cool to even read how He was working in my heart. And I don't even remember what He was doing until I go back and I'm like, yeah, He was doing that, and this was happening, and even to the day, like looking at the day, I was like, wow, that was literally a week before I met Bennett, that I was like just really wrestling with some things and really struggling with loneliness and despair, and honestly like some depression, which was very new for me. I had never ever experienced that in my life, and so that was a very strange season, just feeling really sad and not knowing why, and
then God's like 1 week away.
Yeah, and then the Lord was just, He opened so many doors all at once, and Bennett being the best door He opened, of course. And so I think that season, it was obviously hard, and I totally understand the girls that really struggle with it, because it really is hard, and I understand it more than they know. But I wish I could have told myself in that season that it is going to be okay. God is going to take care of you. He's got you. You just need to walk in His faithfulness and trust Him. And like Bennett was saying, be in the community, serve others.
That's so good. I love the idea of like emailing, because we were talking about this in my life group, our like Bible study, because we go through journals so quick, and then we don't want to like hoard a ton of journals. And so that's
Hoard them
perfect.
all.
Just put them on emails.
Put it on the way. Yeah.
And like it's so encouraging to go back and see like things that you forget, but it's like, whoa, God like answered that prayer, and
it
so
really is. Yeah, and that's a biblical concept too, reminding yourself of what God has done and His faithfulness. It's all in the Psalms, of just even Lamentations, this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Like they're the person or the psalmist or whoever is remembering. And I know that I'm such a forgetful person, and so I have to remind myself constantly, even now, like remembering what 2 years ago was like. There's a quote by John Piper. He says, God is doing 1,000 things, and you're probably aware of 3 of them. And I thought that was such an impactful quote. Like, God is doing so much for you. You're not even aware of half of it.
Yes, that's so good. And like growing your relationship with the Lord before you guys met, I think that's so good, because you're both maturing at the same time. Even though you don't like know each other, you don't know what the timing is, like you both matured so much, and then when you did meet, that was like the perfect time, and you were able to connect better than maybe you would have like before.
Yeah.
So tell us about like how you met and all of that.
Yeah, well, taking us back to Christ Church, Central Phoenix, we met a year before we really became like official and started dating. I met briefly through Margot, our sister.
Shout out.
Shout out
She's
to
on the
Margot.
podcast.
Yeah, go check her episode out. She's awesome. But yeah, Margot mentioned to me that there was this girl at church named Caitlyn that I really had to meet, and so anyway, long story short, we were both helping out at the time. I was ushering, Caitlyn was doing greeting at the church, and we have these huddles before service, and so we met briefly before, but didn't really get to talk much. Just in passing before the huddle started, Margot introduced us, and then that was kind of it. I don't even think we really saw each other much.
Did Margot tell you about Bennett or just Bennett about you? Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I knew of Bennett, obviously, and she told me about some trips that they had done, but she had never dropped any hints. So I wasn't really aware of much until later on.
That is true, though. She did mention, was that before we met the first time?
The trip?
Yeah.
I think it was before.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was like, whoa, this brother sounds awesome.
So anyway, though, so long story short, we met then, and then roughly a year passed, and then I was at that point. Margot and I were both living together, and we were chatting about community, and community was really starting to form. And at that point, we were like, we should host a game night over the summer, and so we decided. I think it was every other week.
Yeah, you
Something
guys did
like
it
that.
often.
But we did a game night that we hosted at the house every other week and invited a bunch of friends over. And Margot on a whim, invited Caitlyn to the game night. A little subtle, yeah.
Little subtle hints.
Yeah, maybe so, not so subtle.
No, but it was at that point I was like, oh yeah, Caitlyn. And then she came to the game night, and I was excited to see her again because it had been a long time and we hadn't really chatted much since then at all. And so anyway, long story short, when she was there, we talked a lot that night, and talked a bit, and then that's kind of where my interest was piqued, and I was like, I gotta get to know her better. If you want to go from there.
Yeah, I was definitely interested at the game night. I was like, wow, this guy's really cool, and I was really impressed. I honestly was intimidated too. I didn't think much of it after that night because I just thought he was way out of my league. So there was a couple months
mutual.
in between.
I felt the same about you.
Oh, that's sweet. There were a couple months in between the game night and then him actually asking me out. And I know he was trying to track me down at church to ask me in person, and we both were just traveling a lot. But the whole time, I didn't think about it too much because I just was like, he's really cool. I just didn't think that there would be anything there, not because of him. Yeah, I was
So you
definitely
guys-
surprised when he asked me out.
Yeah, so you guys kept like missing each other at church, and then finally on your last Sunday at Christ Church before moving to Gilbert Christ Church, then Bennett asked you out. So how many
Yes.
weeks, months was that?
That was a while because that was that was beginning of August, and the game night I want to say was in May.
It was in May. Yeah.
Oh,
So it was a
okay,
couple
so you
months.
waited a long time.
Yeah.
We both were elusive. We couldn't find each other at church.
And then tell us how like you asked her out, and then how you met the family. I know that was a big event.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then we ended up going on a first date to Flower Child, shout out, so good. And that's where we really hit it off. And from there, the rest is kind of history. I was flying home to Oregon that day, so it was very quick. And then we ended up going indoor skydiving, which was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy first days.
Wild first
So
date.
spontaneous.
Do
Yeah.
recommend though, it's very fun.
Yeah, from there we just went on dates consistently, and Bennett was the first guy I was consistently going out with. So I was definitely really excited but nervous too because I had never done this before. But it was so much fun, and I think all of the fears that I had about dating were just put to rest with Bennett, which was so sweet. I just prayed for specific things in a man, and he was all those things and more. And it was really cool how the Lord just worked in both of our hearts. And I think my dad was super helpful in those beginning stages. I think I was kind of panicked. I'd never done this before. I was just nervous. And my dad just helped me a lot. He was like, "Are you having fun?" And I said, yes, I'm having fun. He's like, great, just have fun, get to know him, don't overthink it. Because I think as believers, we can just, date one, we're like, oh my goodness, are we getting married? And I obviously saw potential in that right away. But I think it's okay to just have fun, get to know each other, and just, a couple dates in, see how you're feeling. But it was such a good time. We just had fun doing activities and just talking. It was great.
That's amazing. And then Bennett, you came back to Oregon that same day. And I remember after church we all got lunch together, and you were like telling us about this girl you had met, and like you went skydiving, and I was like, whoa, this is a crazy first date. And like you seemed like so happy. I was like, okay, this is ready
to drop down on a knee.
Day one.
Day one.
It's so fun. And then when you met the family, I remember there was like a spotlight that you guys like turned on, and it was like kind of the hot seat.
So that wasn't when he met my family initially. That would be a crazy first meeting.
Oh, okay.
He met my family at Cava maybe 2 weeks after we started dating. It was pretty quick. And then I met Graham that night, I think, and a couple other of his siblings. But the whole spotlight thing you're referring to, we have some family friends that they're amazing, and the dad, he loves to just poke fun with people. It's like his love language, and he like put a spotlight over Bennett and asked him questions.
And this was a couple months in. I think this was
it's true. We weren't a couple
in.
weeks in. We were a couple months in. And it was just funny questions he asked, and there was a little girl there who was asking cute questions. But
it was funny because I heard he early on in the evening was like, "It's time for your spotlight interrogation/interview," and like you hear these things all the time with like dads of like daughters and with like friends and whatnot, where it's like, "Have you seen my shotgun collection?" That's everything. And we're like, "Oh yeah, sure. There's going to be an interrogation interview from you," but turns out he was serious.
There really was.
I didn't know there would either.
I came back to the house later in the evening, and I saw a chair with a light over it, and I was like, "Oh, this isn't a joke anymore. This is actually a thing." So it was fun. The good thing though, the questions are very easy, all softballs. So it was.
A little girl was asking the questions too.
Yeah.
So that's good.
It was cute.
I know Bennett, growing up, you would always say that you should date through all the seasons. Like you have to date a year at least. So tell us about like your dating experience and how that went.
Yeah. Timeline and time frame is such an interesting discussion in dating. I think it's a challenging one because it really depends so much on the individual. It depends on the season. It depends on a lot of variables. But you're not wrong. I want to say I've always said like a year or two is like essential to really get to know someone fully. And I do think that time is a very important factor. And I think rushing into a very big decision like marriage is not a great idea. But I do think in this season of life, as we both have like come through college and also spent a couple of years in adulthood and that type of thing, I think that kind of changed my perspective to some extent. Once I think you've really settled in who you are as an individual, I feel like personally I felt like the time to really get to know someone was a lot shorter because you both are a lot more established, and stuff comes out quicker, I feel like, as well. And there's not as much putting on the show, but it's more of like, here's who I am, here's who you are, like, does this make sense? And it's you can kind of cut through the fog or the haze quicker.
Like you've almost worked through your own things like before meeting each other.
Yeah.
And like matured on your own, so then there was less to like work through before.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that's a really good way of putting it. I think when you are younger and you are dating, I think that you need more time because you're still figuring out who you are, and so there's necessarily more time to figure out who you are and then who you are together. That takes more work. But yeah, it was really cool to see the way the Lord moved and just led us both and gave us both a desire to want to move to that next season. But I feel like 8 months was really great for us and gave us enough time to really see each other. Also, Arizona is always kind of one season, so There's not really.
Wait, yeah, that's true.
You're
You're not going through the Oregon season.
not
Yeah.
going through as much weather seasons.
Like
but
the season of depression in winter.
Yeah,
Right. It's
yeah.
just hot and then less hot here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like it was really helpful too that we both had really solid relationships with the Lord, because that obviously was a huge part of it. And every single relationship is going to look so different. And I think that was something that we were reminded of in it. Like, we have friends who maybe dated for the same or less than us, or dated a lot longer than us, and there's not a wrong way to do it. It just, the Lord was just leading us in the way He did, and He leads other couples in a different way. And as long as you're honoring the Lord and keeping Him in the center of the relationship, He guides the rest. He makes it clear. And we prayed a lot in dating and engagement. I mean, engagement, obviously, we know we're getting married, but especially in dating, we're praying that the Lord would just guide our desires. And it wasn't a lack of not knowing if we wanted to get married, it was just wisdom and when. And so that was something that we wanted to be prayerful about. And even during engagement, that's still something that we still want to keep the Lord in the center. And marriage it's a big commitment, because it's a reflection of the church and of Christ, and we really want to honor Him in that. So I think if I was listening to this and not in a relationship, I might feel like I need to copy. And I just want the listeners to know it doesn't look the same for everyone, and that's okay. There's not a wrong way to do it as long as the Lord is in the center.
That's
Yeah.
such a good point, because it is so different for every
Mhm.
couple, and it's not like there's a certain amount of months you have to date and then be engaged for. It's so different for everyone, and there's no model that you have to copy.
Mhm.
But-
I agree. Yeah.
I like that point. And then also in dating, you said you prayed a lot. What did that look like, having the Lord as the center of your relationship?
Yeah, I mean, dating is definitely, obviously, different than engagement and marriage. I think, especially for Bennett being a spiritual leader, that's very different in marriage than in dating. And I think he did a great job of initiating spiritual conversations. But I think we also had to be separate in our pursuit of the Lord, more separate than we are now. I think as a married couple, we're a lot more like together, and I don't really know how to phrase it. I think I've seen a lot. The beauty of getting married later than all my friends was I saw a lot of things I didn't want to do, and also
that's a
things
good
I
point.
did want to copy. But a lot of things I saw that I didn't want to do revolved around being too codependent on each other, even spiritually.
Mhm.
And I think that can be really confusing when you're kind of emotionally and spiritually attaching to a person. And I think we were trying to be intentional, at least initially in dating, like very early on, to talk about spiritual things, pray together. Obviously that's so important. We want to make sure we're on the same page on the big rocks when it comes to spiritual truths, but also pursuing the Lord separately.
That's such a good point, because you don't want to take all of their emotions on, because in dating, like, they need to go to God, and like you need to go to God
Mhm.
separately. So I like that you made that point.
I think the biggest thing too is you need to have your relationship, your walk with the Lord, be yours, and you need to own it, and that carries through marriage as well. That carries through all the stages. But marriage is unique because you almost have two relationships with the Lord. That sounds weird, but you have like a joint relationship together coming before the Lord, but you also still have your individual relationship. Both are important. Marriage, I would argue, just adds a new one. It's like both of you staying combined before the Lord. But the stage, like you're saying, in dating, it's so important that you don't create that codependency and also that combined relationship before the Lord in dating, because then if things stop, or even if they do continue, I think what tends to happen is people, instead of adding on a new second relationship, it's like you leave your personal relationship with the Lord to form this new one. But that individual relationship is so important. And then again, if things fall apart with dating, whatever, it can very easily have a massive effect on your relationship with the Lord. Whereas your relationship with the Lord should be outside of the relationship and shouldn't be affected by how the relationship goes. The way I kind of picture it is like you're both in dating, you both are in class, and you both need to do your own homework, take your own tests, everything. And in that stage, it's important to compare notes and make sure you both are on the same track. Are you both thinking the same thoughts? Are you both solving the problems the same way, but you are still individuals in this class. You need to do your own homework, and if you start combining your homework, you can imagine it like you can imagine a class's life. And let's say that you're both working on the homework together. One person halfway through class dips, you never see him again, and now you're stuck trying to figure it out on your own. Like you need to be, you need to have your own homework, your own notes, your own tests, because your relationship with the Lord shouldn't be affected by someone that isn't committed.
Oh, that's such a good point. And then you said, like, if dating relationship ends, then it's almost like your relationship with God, it, like, takes a hit.
It takes a massive hit. And it shouldn't. Again, it should be outside of all the things of this world.
That's such a good point. I think one of my professors said, dating is like a triangle where, like, you and the other person are, like, on the two ends of the triangle, and then God's at the top. And, like, the closer you both go to God, the closer you, like, are together.
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah.
And I think that's, like, such a good analogy, and like what you're saying too, like you have to do your own homework, you have to build your own like relationship with God while you grow together,
and that will bring you together.
And then even in marriage, like what does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think even in marriage, it's still so important to prioritize the Lord even before each other. And I think I've realized all of the times that we have like a disagreement or something like that, it's so easy for me to trace in my own heart where I am prioritizing myself over, or even expecting Bennett to be God, as silly as that sounds. And it's such a tricky thing because it's hard to identify sometimes, but that is not a fair expectation to put on him, and vice versa. And I think even in marriage, it's so important that you put the Lord first. And when we're both doing that, when we both want to honor and serve the Lord, even before we do that for each other, then we're actually going to love each other better. I'm going to be a better wife. I'm going to serve him more. I'm going to be more selfless. He's going to be a better husband. Like it almost sounds a little counterintuitive, but by pursuing the Lord first, it's just amazing. The Bible is alive and active, and I feel it in the days when I'm not in it. I'm more irritable, I'm more snappy, I'm not as kind, and it's just amazing how I truly don't know how couples do it without the Lord. Like there's some days where I'm like, man, I feel like I'm just being so unkind today, and without the Lord, how would I grow from this, you know? And even Bennett, he displays Christ all the time, and just the way that he offers forgiveness and grace, and even that forgiving each other, that's such a biblical concept. So I think keeping Jesus in the center is so important in any relationship status, but especially in marriage.
I think that's such a good point, because our worldview is like that your spouse, your husband or wife will fix all of your problems. And like even a movie I watched last night was about that, where they got married and like that fixed their problems. And then I think that leads to like an unhealthy view of like marriage or even dating, that it'll fix your life. And so I think it's so important, even in being single, like to go to God and like view relationships as like an opportunity to like grow in the Lord, but not to fix all of your problems.
Yeah, and if I can just add one more thing. I love Elizabeth Elliot. She's an amazing author and speaker. She passed away a couple years ago, I think, but she talks a lot about marriage, and she says that it's so important to expect for your spouse and yourself that you guys are sinners. And she is just saying that's important to remember, because a lot of us forget. And when your spouse makes a mistake, you're like, oh my goodness, what is happening? But you would want your spouse to have grace towards you when you sin, because that's who we are. We're sinners. And it was honestly such maybe a simple reminder, but it really helped me to not be unfair in the expectations I put on Bennett, because we're both human. We're going to fail each other. And I want him to show me grace when I fail. And so how much more should I give him grace when he makes a mistake? And so I think that's something, like you said, the culture, it's like if your spouse does something you don't like, you just walk away. And that's not reality. That's if you're going to do that, you're going to be getting married dozens of times in your lifetime, right? Because that's not what makes a good marriage, is not having problems. I would argue we have a good marriage because we do work through things. And communication's important. If you just stuff things, you're not going to grow in your love for each other and your love for the Lord and your service towards other people.
That's so good, and it's like good to have a realistic expectation.
I know, if I can take a tangent on that, I've heard some really good advice on that. There was a pastor, he had a couple that was doing premarital counseling with him. I believe they were engaged, and they came to him and they were asking, or like going through the process, and he asked them the question, what is the biggest problem and issue that you see in your spouse? And they both like gave the answer of like, oh, she's perfect, he's perfect, everything's great. And he told them, we're going to cancel this premarital until you guys can find out problems with each other. And he's like, when you find problems with each other, come back to me and we'll continue the premarital counseling. And that was a powerful story because it hit me in marriages and in the dating season too. Problems aren't bad, but you need to see this person, and that goes back into the time. You need to have enough time to really get to see this person through the different stages of life. And we all are sinners, and we all struggle with different things in different ways. And dating's a really important time to understand this person and also let this other person understand you. And then you both can understand where you both struggle, where you have faults. And then with that knowledge, make the decision of, is this something that I can work through with them, that I am okay with? Because at the end of the day, we're all sinners, and marriage is choosing someone who is a sinner, but you're choosing despite that to commit and love them through it. And so you need to know what you're signing up for, more or less. You need to know, like, okay, this is where they are going to struggle. Am I willing and able to come alongside and help them in this? This is something that I'm okay with. And then you get into things like, obviously, big red flags and whatnot that you see, and it's like, okay, this is something that is not something that's worth putting up with, and I need to move on. But then there's other things and intricacies and things that will maybe bother you, but you just need to make the decision, like, is this something that I'm willing to cover, and I want to love this person in spite of. And then that makes that love so much more meaningful. When you love someone, even in spite of how we are sinners, you love them through that is like so much more powerful than loving this imaginary perfect being that doesn't exist. We all are sinners, and if you get to know any of us enough, sin comes out.
That's so good. And I think something else that was brought up a lot was like do you want to marry this person? Like, if this person never changes this thing, are you still okay with like marrying them? And I think that's like such a good concept too, because like, yes, we like, our goal is to change and grow, but like, we may fail in some areas, and so like marrying them is like marrying that problem too, and like you will help them like through that. And I feel like that's also a reflection of like God, how he loves us despite our sins and our problems that we're
so true.
Leaning on him for.
Yeah, and to your point, I think remembering the gospel is so important in not only relationships, but any aspect in life. Even like I was talking about earlier, my struggling with skin in college, I needed the gospel to be like pressed upon my heart, to remember there's no goodness in me, that the Lord wants to save me. And even if I felt like I feel so good in my skin, that's pride, and that is what the Lord died to save me from. And so there's a pastor that said there's a gospel for everything, and it's the same gospel but for each problem or circumstance. And I think that's so important to remember, even in marriage, that our marriage, any marriage, cannot thrive without the gospel. And it makes me love the Lord so much more and love Bennett more when I see the gospel displayed, not only when things are going really well, but also when things are hard, or when we're having a disagreement and Bennett is displaying the gospel by what you just said, loving me when I don't deserve to be loved. And I think that's such a good reminder that as long as you keep the gospel in the center, everything else will work out. And I think it's so easy for us to overcomplicate things. I know I'm an overthinker, and it's helpful to just dumb it down a little bit, keep it simple, and just remember that one thing. Like, if you keep the gospel in the center, if that is at the forefront of your thinking, of the way that you behave, then it's going to work out. It's going to be fine. And it's not only going to work out, it's going to be a great marriage, and it's going to be a great relationship.
That's so good. And I'm an overthinker too, so that's something to keep in mind. Like, write the gospel out for yourself. And like, even the emails you're saying, like maybe write prayers and like the gospel and like pair those to like encourage you in whatever season you're going through. Okay, well, it's been such a good podcast. There's so much wisdom from you guys and so much encouragement as like maybe there's single listeners listening and like wanting to know realistically what a Christian relationship looks like centered around God. So I think this is so encouraging. And anyone who's like getting married soon or has fears about that, like I hope this is super encouraging. But were there any verses that you like leaned on as you went through your dating relationship, engagement, and marriage?
Yeah, I'd say for me it would be Isaiah 41:10. I have it here. It says, "Fear not, for I am with you, and be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, I will help you, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." I love that verse, and not only for marriage, but just anything that you're facing in life. I think I can tend to be a fearful person, and I feel like everyone has fears about something, whether it's I'm going to college and I'm afraid to start community, I'm moving to Arizona and I'm afraid to get plugged in, I'm starting this relationship and I'm afraid where it's going to go. And I think fear is just such a normal human thing. And I feel like this verse really comforts me whenever I am afraid, just knowing that God is with me, he's going to help me. And the prepositions are awesome in it. Like, he is with you, he's around you, he's under you, he's over you. And so I just feel like that verse brings me so much comfort, and it's something that I rely on a lot.
That's so good. That's such a good verse. I actually, at Christ Church, we had this like college night where we each picked out a verse that's like encouraging to us, and then we would write it on a sticky note and then trade it with a stranger, and we literally both picked that verse.
No way.
That's why I like remember that verse. Yeah, that's such a good verse to lean on.
One of the verses that I've found so much peace in over the years is Psalm 91 verse 4. It says, "He will cover you with his pinions, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness is a shield and a buckler." I love that picture that the Lord gives here through the psalmist of a bird covering its baby chicks or little hens with the wings. And there's so much protection, knowing that we don't have to be strong for ourselves in this world. There's so much that can bring fear, and especially as you get into your adult years and post-college, you have so much responsibility, and you need to hold down a job, and you need to provide for your family and provide for yourself, and there's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress. There's so much peace knowing that we can go and run to the Lord and seek shelter in him, and that enables us to, like, we need to be strong in the world, but we can be strong because we are backed up by the Lord. He gives us that strength to be confident and be strong when we don't feel that strength in our own.
That's so good. We're like going over the armor of God in life group right now.
Let's go.
And like, yeah, all of the like armors of God, like those are just shields for us as we are going through life. And it's so cool to realize, it isn't our own strength, because it can be easy to like put it on yourself. But that picture of like the hen like shielding her like chicks with her wing, that's so cool. So I love that verse. And I just want to ask, are there any like pieces of advice that you would use to encourage a listener who's going through a similar situation?
Yeah, I love the question. I love getting advice. Over the years, through a lot of podcasts and whatnot, I've enjoyed hearing different relationship advice and also life advice in general. But one of the ones that just has come back so much over the years and has stuck with me, and I've enjoyed sharing with others, is the advice of, in a relationship, and this carries out in work, this carries out in so many settings, but specifically in relationships between like dating and marriage, you can't expect what you don't express. I think that advice has just been really powerful to me through seasons where, especially through dating and moving into marriage, it's so easy to expect things of your spouse or expect things of your boyfriend or girlfriend. But I think it's so important to express that and share your desires, and then give them room to fulfill those desires. It's so easy to get annoyed at someone or mad and upset when they don't do something that you expect them to, but you haven't ever expressed that desire. So I don't know, just advice in general, that's like a big big piece of advice that stood out to me over the years.
That's a good one. You can't expect what you don't express.
Yeah.
Okay, so like communication is
Communication
key.
key.
Not making assumptions. That's so good.
Yeah.
And then you said earlier, of the thousands of things that God is doing, you know about 3. I think that was the quote. That's so good.
Yeah, it's a John Piper quote. I might be misquoting it slightly, but he says, God is doing 1,000 things for you, and you're probably aware of 3 of them. So I love that quote because it's just such a good reminder that God is working for us, and he is with us, and he's not against us. And I think so many people, just believers especially, need to just remember that God truly is in control and he cares for you. And I think it's easy to believe God is sovereign, but sometimes it's hard to believe that he's good and that he loves you.
Yeah.
Circumstances that feel small, at least, that to you are important, but maybe in the grand scheme is small, but he cares even about that. And I think one other thing I would add is, I said it earlier, but if I could just give one piece of advice to someone in a relationship, or just again in general, is just truly keeping Jesus in the center. I feel like I'm saying it out loud and I'm realizing how much I struggle with that sometimes, and I'm reminding myself in this moment how much I need that. And I know that I love Bennett best when I keep Jesus in the center, and I love myself more when I don't keep Jesus in the center, which means that I don't love Bennett as well as I should be loving him. And not only marriage, but at work, at church, with family, with friends, when I keep Jesus in the center, my insecurity isn't driving my behavior or words, my pride, my fear, whatever it is. I can be so easily emotionally driven, and I feel like when I keep Jesus in the center, then I'm who I should be in Christ, and also I act the way that I should, that honors him and also loves the people around me.
That's so good. Like, it reflects when you are with other people. That's so good. Well, you guys shared so much good advice, and I'm sure you guys are so encouraged. But thank you guys so much for being willing to share and come on this podcast.
Thanks for having us. Feel honored to be on.
Truly.
Yes, of course. And well, there are some more episodes coming out, so stay tuned. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.